Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a nice day outside, and I can
Yes.
get excited about it. It's like
Good weather.
it's like I want to be out there in it, but I'm glad to be here in the house of the Lord. There ain't no better place to be. So
Amen.
worshiping Him. But we're still in our series of lessons on the early Jewish history. And before we get started, we'll have a quick word of prayer, and then we'll get into this lesson. Oh, Father,
Thank you.
whether it's sunny or rainy or hot or cold outside, you're still the God of it all, and we worship and praise you, Lord. And
Thank
we're
you.
so grateful for all days that you give us, Lord. And we ask that you take our lives and use it for your glory. So that's our duty in life, is to honor and give you glory, Jesus.
Thank you.
And Lord, we ask you to take this lesson and bless it to our hearts and minds. We know who you are. We know we put all our needs in before you, and we're trusting you with all the wonderful answers. And we thank you in Jesus' name for the miracles, great and small. And oh Lord, thank you for everything. Amen. This is our fifth lesson in this series, where we're studying from Abraham to Joseph. We first covered God's arranging the covenant with Abraham. He was the first Jew, was he not? The first Hebrew or Jew. And then from him descended all mighty nation. And then we went from Abraham, and covenant flowed to Isaac, and from Isaac to Jacob. Isaac had two sons, but Jacob was the son of promise. And then it went from, now Jacob had how many kids? At least, 12 sons at least. And now we're studying his son Joseph. And we looked at Joseph being taken into slavery and ending up in Egypt, and then how God has blessed him and taken care of him. And he's in his slavery, he's been in the master of one household and was blessed there. He was put in prison, unjustly put in prison, and he was blessed there. And then last week we learned that he was promoted, he's second in command over the whole nation of Egypt.
Wow.
And only God, only God can do that. And today's lesson is entitled "Joseph Reunited with His Brothers." We know his brothers are those who sold him into slavery. Their original intent was to kill him, be rid of him, but then one brother pleaded his cause and was going to
finished with him yet.
right, and so he was spared death, and but then they sold him into slavery, and so these are those very brothers. But we'll see how God has worked in Joseph's heart to make this union be special. But I want to turn to chapter 42 instead of where we're supposed to start, which is chapter 44. I want to look at their first reunion. And let's do 42 verses 1 and 2, please.
Now, when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do ye look one upon another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die.
At the close of our lesson last week, what had commenced in the land affecting Egypt and all the countries surrounding it? The famine. The 7 years of dearth or famine that would wax sore over all the land. Yet what nation, thanks to the blessing of God and the work of Joseph, had made great provision for this terrible time? Egypt. Now, who found themselves in need of food during this famine? This is Jacob, also known as Israel, and his many sons and all their many households. They were starting to go hungry or be in need. So Jacob commanded his sons, Go down to Egypt and buy them also food, so that they may what and not what? Live and not die. Simple as that, right? 3 through 5, please.
So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, Lest some calamity befall him. And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed, for the famine was in the land of Canaan.
Jacob and his sons and all their households were living where? In the land of Canaan. And there were how many brothers living there with their father? 11. Yeah. But only how many made the trip to Egypt? 10.
Guess what? That's the same 10 that put him in the pit.
Right, that is the same 10 that put him, yeah, And which one remained behind?
Benjamin.
Benjamin, the youngest, who is the only one of the 11 to be Joseph's full brother,
Yes.
seeing as they shared the same mother as well as the same father. He was the son of Jacob and Rachel. And Joseph, and Rachel was Jacob's beloved wife.
Right.
And as he had loved Joseph prior, when Joseph went missing, then he turned his love to Benjamin, yes. The other 10 were only Joseph's half-brothers, in that they shared the same father but not the same mother. And Jacob sent not Benjamin with the others because why?
He was afraid something might happen to him.
Exactly, he feared harm would come to him. Jacob had already lost Joseph, and he wasn't going to take any chances with Benjamin.
Right.
6 through 8, please.
Okay. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and it was that so to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Oh, to 8?
To 8, yes, please.
Okay, and Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him.
Now the 10 brothers made it to Egypt, and who did they come unto? Joseph. For he was the governor over the land, it says. He's second unto Pharaoh in power, is he not? But he personally handled the selling of what to all the people, be they from Egypt or elsewhere? Grain. Now, here's this mighty, powerful guy, and yet he's handling this commerce. There's a reason, we will find out why he's handling it, so he could, when the brothers came, he could be there, right? And Joseph knew who?
His brother.
His brethren, but his brethren knew not what? Knew not who?
Joseph.
Well, he had
Joseph.
an advantage. There was 10 of them, and that he couldn't help but recognize the 10.
Well, and it's been 20 years, 20 plus years.
Right.
They presumed Joseph to be a slave or dead somewhere, not the top guy over Egypt. And surely Joseph's appearance was not that of a slave.
No, he was dressed like an Egyptian.
Yep, and he was clean.
Prince Egyptian.
They clean shaven because the Egyptians did not believe in face hair or whatever, and he had short hair. Didn't believe in long hair or beard, so he looked different, did he not? And our verse here says it was also because he made himself what unto them?
That's
Strange.
Yeah.
He put on a show for them,
Yeah.
so as to keep them in the dark as to his
Who he was.
identity, right? And the 10 brothers came before Joseph and did what before him?
Ah.
Yeah.
They bowed down with their faces to the ground, an act of what? Homage, respect, and homage. To this powerful Egyptian who they come seeking aid from, and Joseph spoke how unto them?
Roughly.
Or some harshly, and proceeded to question them, did he not? Verse 9, please.
And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come.
Joseph knew his brothers, and Joseph also remembered what? The dreams, which he had dreamed of them. These are the dreams he had some 20 years ago, when he was only 17 years old, and when he was yet with his father and his brothers. And these dreams are cited as one of the many reasons why his brothers hated him and desired to be rid of him and sold him into slavery. Can anyone recall these dreams?
first one there were sheaves of grain in the field, his stood upright, and the other 11 sheaves or whatever bowed down to his sheaf. The second breed was the stars and the sun and moon bowed down.
Right. That's in Genesis 27:7 and 9. But others made the first is in King James says made obeisance to him, which is paid respect and homage to him. And here we have the 10 brothers making obeisance to Joseph. So here we have those dreams coming to pass, do we not? And Joseph knew these dreams were divine revelations. And here he saw them being brought to pass before his eyes. And Joseph continued with his ruse with them and accused them of being what? Spies. Who have come to Egypt during this time of universal calamity in order to see the what of the land? The nakedness. And to spy out their potential vulnerability. You know, he's really putting it on, is he not? Now, what one commentator here said struck me. Until now, he had always considered the suffering and injustice of Joseph at the hands of his brother and Potiphar's wife and his master to be the greatest test of Joseph's life. But he was wrong. What test could possibly be greater than the one which Joseph here faced in Genesis 42? Here he was faced by his brothers, who are absolutely destitute and defenseless, while Joseph had unlimited power. Without a doubt, this was the greatest test of Joseph's character. It is one thing to be tested when you are powerless to resist. It is quite another to be given the opportunity to get revenge.
And I think he was doing that too. I mean, as the story progresses, we don't talk about it very much, but he really just.
He was testing them, Steve.
Yeah,
He was testing.
Yeah, he was testing to see if they had changed. If they're, and
We'll
you know,
testing
but he could have done a lot more to them.
Oh, good for him.
You know, let's see, let's see.
Verse 10.
It is quite another to be given the opportunity to get revenge when your enemies are mere putty in your hands. Now, I ask, is this the purpose of Joseph's ruse? Vengeance, or is it something greater?
I think it's greater.
I think, yeah, it's
There was a
something.
little bit of vengeance there at first. I think this is where the struggle goes that you're talking about. In the way that I read it, I think at this particular point, he's angry. Again, I'm looking, maybe it's me, but I would be very, very angry. And here, he's got them in his hand. He can crush them. But he doesn't. But this is, to me, the struggle. He can. And he's going through it, and he's putting himself to the test. One of his brothers stays in prison. We don't know how long, but until they run out of food.
Yeah,
So his
yeah.
brother is there under that persecution. So, and he doesn't make any special favors for his brother while he is in prison that the Bible shares with us. So I'd say he's kind of getting back at this particular time.
But he could. But Joseph is, in the long run, he's proving their hearts,
Yeah, that's what he said.
and hopefully seeing if they've repented or changed their ways.
Well,
So,
he's had long enough with everything that's happened to realize that God had a hand in it.
oh yeah, remember?
That much.
Well, there was
he has
someplace
learned.
later on I was going to bring to note Manasseh
Uh-huh.
and what he named Manasseh, which means, I forget now what it means.
It means
Forgive? No,
you
forget.
basically forget.
Forget. And he said the Lord had made him to forget.
Forget.
So,
This
but
affliction.
verses 10 and 11, please, of 42.
Is that-
And they said to him, No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons, we are honest men, your servants are not spies.
The 10 brothers all refute Joseph's accusation that they're spies. They humbly claim they are his what?
Servants.
Servants, who have come not to spy out the land, but to just simply buy food. They have vouched this is indeed the truth by claiming they are all one man's sons, who are what kind of men?
Honest men.
True, or honest and upright. Now, Steve touched on a little bit, and the rest of 42, they go back and forth for a little while. You know, he keeps accusing them of spies, and they keep revealing more and more about themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they even at one point mention what they've done to Joseph. You know, we're suffering this now because this
Because
is
of what
God.
we
You
did.
know, because God's getting back at us of what we've done to him. But and eventually, Joseph puts them in jail, all of them.
Yeah,
He says, and one of you can go back.
yeah.
You know, and bring that younger brother. And prove you have a younger brother. Bring him to me.
Yeah,
But eventually he lets all but one go.
yeah,
He keeps Simeon.
yeah.
I don't know why he picked him. It doesn't say why he picked him, but he picked Simeon and left him in jail. He left him in prison. And the brothers return. And then at the start of 43, I think it is, the brothers go back to Jacob and tell Jacob what all's happened. Jacob says, oh, you know, they don't go right back to get their brother out of jail.
No, they don't.
They wait till their food supply runs low again, and Jacob says, y'all go back and get more food. We're not going unless little brother goes with us, because that man said he wouldn't even see us if we didn't take Benjamin. And Jacob drags his heel. He's like, no, till finally he has to let the boy go, you know. And he even wants to send a gift, you know, trying to smooth things over and all like that. You know, and so we're going to pick it up.
They had found their money in their sacks.
Yes, they had found
That's why he was sending
I meant to mention that, but they had, yes. Joseph had put their, not only grain in their sacks, but he had their money returned to them. And they had, you know, they come back. One had found it on the way back that it was in his sack. When they get back, they all find it in there, you know. And then again, they don't rush back to return the money. They just, you know, they wait.
I think he had the fear of God in him.
And let's see, and the rest, let's see, now they come to, let's see, are we gonna do 43? Yeah, let's do 43. Pick it up at 43 verse 26, please. 26, 27, 26 through 30, I guess.
All right.
Okay, he's reading.
And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present.
Oh, I forgot to get us up to that point. Go ahead and I'll get us up there after you get through reading.
And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked them of their welfare and said, Is your father well, the old man of whom ye spake? Is he yet alive? And they answered, Thy servant our father is in good health, he is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your younger brother of whom ye spake unto me? And he said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep. And he entered into his chamber and wept there.
They had returned. Joseph saw them, and he told his steward, or the master of his house, take them to my house, we're going to have a meal together. Can you imagine what they were going through at that time?
Yeah.
And they get there, and the first thing they do is go to the steward, and they hand him all the money. Like, here, we didn't mean for this, you know.
We just found it in our hands.
And the steward's like, hey, I like what the steward said. Let me see if I can go there. 43. Because the steward says, Peace be to you, fear not. Your God and the God of your father have given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money, and he brought Simeon out unto them. You know, he gives credit to God for, you know, what took place with the brothers. Joseph has had an effect on this man, I think,
Yeah.
has he not? And then we also see here, Simeon has been returned unto them. Now we go back to to the lesson here. Let me get there. His brothers had been taken to Joseph's home in order to enjoy a noontime meal with him. And when Joseph arrived, how did the brothers greet him?
Humbly.
They bowed down again before him, did they not? Which was fulfillment again of Joseph's dream. And then what did they bring to him?
The present from their dad.
Yeah, the humble gift which their father bade them to make and given to him. And then who does Joseph straightway inquire after?
The father.
His father, yep, their father. Asking not only is he well, but even more importantly, is he what?
Alive.
Alive. For Joseph so loved and longed to be reunited with his father, did he not? And the brothers answered positively to both his inquiries, and then respectively they bowed their what before him? Their heads. They made what unto Joseph again? Obeisance or homage. Well, meanwhile, Joseph took special note of who being among them? Benjamin, his brother. And he bid God's blessing on the young, I say young man, but by now Benjamin's what, 24, 25, 20, in his mid-20s, somewhere in there. So he's not a lad anymore, or a young man, but anyhow. And deep within himself did Joseph yearn upon or for who?
Benjamin.
For Benjamin. He longed to touch him, to be reunited with him. And he, and his longing brought upon him such a wave of emotion that Joseph sought where to what?
Right.
To weep.
Private place.
But he could not do so in front of his brothers and risk what?
Them recognizing.
Them recognizing him.
Wasn't ready yet.
Thus he made haste and he retreated into his private chamber and he did what there? He wept. Such was his love, And as for one commentator, we can learn another lesson from Joseph. We see that in his dealings with his brothers, he found it necessary to control his emotions in order to do what was right. Now, his emotions were not wrong, thus they weren't to be denied or repressed. His tears were the proper response to the circumstances, and they were shed in private to conceal his identity, but his emotions were then brought under control, so as to do what was best for his brothers. Had Joseph's emotions reigned, his brothers would not have been brought to their repentance. If Joseph had merely done what his heart told him, he would have immediately revealed his identity. But stimulating their spiritual growth was more important at this time. So how often do we let our emotions reign us? And the rest of this chapter details the meal which they shared. As per one commentator, in complete harmony with the Egyptian culture and to continue concealing his identity, Joseph ate at one table, his Egyptian servants at another, and then his brothers still at another table. Somewhat separate yet in front of him. And I think the scripture even says they were sitting in birth order.
Yeah, and that surprised them.
Yeah, but he's always claimed to be a man of divination, part of his ruse, right? And let's see, in the last verse of 43, is that where we're at?
Yes.
Said, and he took and sent messes unto them from before him. Messes meaning food, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. They, enjoyed themselves there, did they not? So they relaxed a little bit. They found out this man maybe ain't so harsh or rough after all, As per one commentator, as I read the account of Joseph's dealings with his brothers, he was disturbed by the fact that it took perhaps a year or more before he revealed. Why did I put that there? I meant to put that somewhere else. Anyhow, I'll go ahead and read it. I was supposed to move that down, but he revealed his identity to them because it's since their first meeting to this meeting, it's been a year, a year or more, they're surmising. And why did it have to take so long? I believe it was because there was no evidence of the genuine repentance in their hearts until these events of chapter 44. While Joseph's brothers had come to the point of recognizing the hand of God in their trials during their first journey to Egypt, their response was more one of regret than repentance. It was the genuine repentance of Judah that we will see and his brothers in chapter 44, which caused Joseph then to disclose his identity. I meant to put that elsewhere. But now let's go to 44. And it looks like just verse 1 to start off with.
All right. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the man's sack with food, and as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack.
Sound familiar?
So they can find it real quick.
Joseph was a prominent and powerful man in Egypt, was he not? And he had a family and he had a home. And not surprisingly, he had servants serving in his home. And chief among them was who? The steward of his house. It was his job to see all the domestic concerns of the entire house. And as he did on their first journey to Egypt, Joseph ordered his steward to fill the men's sacks firstly with what?
Grain.
Grain. as much as they could carry. And as he commanded, he was also commanded to also put what in each man's sack? Their money, which they had paid for the food. This he had done before. This was nothing, that he. But now here we come to something different. 2 and 3, please. Verses 2 and 3
Okay,
of 44.
and put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money, and he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, and their donkeys.
Now Joseph commanded what additional item to be put in Benjamin, the youngest man's sack?
Silver cup.
The silver cup. And the steward, of course, did according to the word that was spoken to him by who?
Joseph.
He obeyed his master's commands, did he not?
He had to be curious what was going on, because he didn't forget what happened before.
Oh, no,
And he knew here we was doing it again,
plus, yeah.
his curiosity was at peak.
Why would Joseph do this seems to be the obvious question, but we must know Joseph has a greater purpose in all these things he is doing. And the next morning the men, all 11 of them, were what?
Sent away.
Sent away. To go where?
Go back to
Back
Canaan.
home.
Back to their father. Back home, back to their father. 4 through 6, please.
And when they were gone out of the city and not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, Up, follow after the men, and when thou dost overtake them, say unto them, Wherefore have you rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby in he will find? Ye have done evil in so doing. Verse 6, And so he overtook them, and spake unto them these same words.
The brothers had not traveled, they traveled out of the city, but they hadn't gone very far. When who came after them and overtook them? The steward had. Then he did this as Joseph, his master, had commanded him to do, did he not? And when he met up with them, he spoke unto them whose words?
The words that
Joseph, yeah, his master's words. And the steward has directed and inquired of them regarding what item? The silver cup. And he accused them of
taking it.
stealing it. 7 through 9, please.
And they said to him, Why does my Lord say these words? Far be it from us that your servants should do such a thing. Look, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money which we found in the mouth of our sacks. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? With whomever of your servants it is found, let him die, and we also will be my Lord's slaves.
And the men, all 11 of them, quickly what?
So we didn't do it.
They proclaimed their innocence, did they not? They're saying such words as God forbid, and professing themselves to be nothing but upright men. We haven't done this. They believe all to be innocent, such as to go so far as to vow that with whomsoever the cup is found, let him, the guilty one, what? Die. Be put to death. And the rest will become what?
Slaves.
Bondmen or slaves. They were so sure that, yeah. And then 10 through 12, please.
And he said, Now also let it be according unto your words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and ye shall be blameless. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched and began at the eldest, and left at the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack.
The steward, knowing the truth,
Knowing where it was.
and with whom the cup shall be found, he graciously modified the men's self-imposed sentence in agreeing that none should die. But that he with whom the cup is found shall be or become his what? His servant, yes, or slave. And the guilty alone shall be so, for the rest shall be what? Blameless. And allowed to go free and on their way. And the 11 men quickly prepared for, for their sacks to be what?
Open.
Yeah. In fact, they opened them and Can you imagine? It's not in the word in here, but one commentator made the note, what was in the mouths of their sacks?
Their money.
As they each opened it, can you imagine the shock and surprise on their faces as they, uh-oh, you know, what's going on here? And the stewards searched their sacks, beginning with who? Which would be Reuben, and finishing with the youngest, or Benjamin's. Now, and then this is now consider what they found in each man's sack.
This would be the first time that Simeon had seen the money in his bag. Apparently on the previous trip, he didn't go with them.
That's true.
But now he's getting this same treatment.
But can you imagine? All 11 have opened their bags, and there's this money. And let's see. What did he say? Okay, just think, their shock and their fear as they open their, and then the 11 men's further surprise and shock, and theirs alone. You know, the steward and all is not going to be surprised, are they? The silver cup was found where? In Benjamin's sack. 13 and 14, please.
Then they tore their clothes, and each man loaded his donkey and returned to the city. So Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there, and they fell before him on the ground.
And such was the 11 brothers' shock and their utter distress, and their, their hearts were, that they what? They tore. That was a sign of their inner turmoil that was going on within them. And then they all hurriedly laded their stuff back up on their donkeys, and they returned where?
To the city.
Joseph's house.
Back to the city and unto Joseph's house. And no doubt they're professing Benjamin's innocence and hoping to beg for Joseph's, the governor's, what? Mercy. Thus they came and they did what before him?
Fell to the before on the ground.
This time in humble beseeching. They're wanting something really great from this man, are they not? As per one commentator, on their first visit, the brothers had only been impressed with the severity of this Egyptian potentate. They thought him a rush and a harsh man. And here was a man to be feared. But on this second mission and visit, they had also gained an appreciation for his generosity and his kindness, of this governor. The sumptuous new meal and the generous provisions and accommodations were not intended to disarm these men, but to assure them of the kindness of Joseph, so that when they come time to go back and fall before him begging for mercy, they thought they might get it, did they not? In effect, they had seen both his goodness and his severity. I believe part of the reason they returned en masse to Joseph was that they gained an appreciation for his integrity. He was one to whom they could appeal. He was a man of integrity and justice, and this to me is the best explanation of the events of this chapter. And as Judah was responsible for the welfare of Benjamin, so it is he who seems to be heading up the whole. Verses 15 and 7 through 17, please.
And Joseph said unto them, What deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Judah said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or what shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also, with whom the cup is found.
17.
Oh, okay. And he said, God forbid that I should do so, but the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace unto your father.
Joseph, ever maintaining his purposeful deception, his ruse. He spares no words, does he? But he holds Benjamin accountable for the presumed theft. And who speaks on behalf of the 11? Judah. And he doesn't deny the crime. He doesn't admit guilt, or he doesn't offer excuses, does he?
No.
Instead, he admits that they are all without any defense. It's like the cup was found, where it was found, what can we say? And he confesses that he believes they are in this predicament because God hath found out what?
What they have done.
The iniquity of them, meaning more so the 10 who sold Joseph into slavery. They think they're being punished for this. Thus behold, they, both Benjamin and the rest, are to become what?
Servants.
Their Lord's servants, or Joseph, the Egyptian governor's servants. But Joseph avows, God forbid, that he should do so, and only commands that who shall be his servant?
Benjamin.
Yeah, the man in whose hand the cup was found. That's Benjamin. And the rest, the other 10, can leave in peace and go unto where?
Your father.
Their father. And the thought of returning home without Benjamin was the most dreaded to Judah and the others, was it not? They're like, oh. In verses 18 to 29, Judah continues his appeal unto Joseph, ever seeking his mercy. And he proceeds to relate the whole of the matter regarding their aged father, and of Benjamin now being his favored son, and seeing as his full elder brother is presumed dead, and of their father's reluctance to let the lad leave him, and of their father's sure death if he was to lose this son too, and of how they had to separate the lad from his father, seeing as they needed more food, and Joseph had told him to bring the lad with him, else he wouldn't see him. Let's pick it up at verse 30, please. 30 to 34.
30 through 34.
Uh-huh.
Now therefore, when I come to thy servant, my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass, when he seeth that the lad is not with us, that he will die. And thy servant shall bring down the gray hairs of thy servant our father, the sorrow to the grave. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, If I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad, one to thy Lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me, lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come on my father.
And now we have the sum of Judah's appeal. It is that if the lad Benjamin, the favored son of their father, return not unto his father, then their father shall suffer intense sorrow, and his what shall surely be hastened?
Death.
His death. And Judah confesses he became surety for the lad, for Benjamin, unto his father, which is what is meant by surety.
It's a bond.
It's like a guarantee.
Yeah, guarantee.
Or a pledge. Judah vowed to take responsibility for returning the lad safely unto his father, saying, hold me responsible, do whatever you want to do to me, if he don't come back. And Judah then beseeches Joseph to let him abide a bondman and a slave instead of the lad, and to let the lad do what? Return to his father. Go with his brethren unto their father. And Judah pleads this, for he doesn't want to go up unto his father without the lad, and peradventure see the what that shall come on his father.
The death of the sorrow.
His evil, meaning the anguish and the misery and the torment that his father will suffer as a result of losing this cherished son, and because it would probably mean he witnessed his death, So and now let's go to the next chapter, 45, and look at verses 1 through 3, please.
And Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, Make everyone go out from me. So no one stood with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. How far?
3.
Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence.
I like that word. Anyhow, as per one commentator, by the speech of Judah, Joseph plainly saw the great affection which his brethren, especially Judah, now had for his father, as well as his brother Benjamin, as well as the sense they had of their evil in selling him, which lay uppermost on their minds, and for which they thought themselves brought into all this trouble. Another commentator says the whole of Joseph's harsh, that's a big word, enigmatical treatment had been directed to test them and to ascertain if they were the same fierce, cruel men as of old. And the brothers had passed the test. They had changed. You know, when you think of their treatment of Joseph to the treatment of Benjamin, you know, and it was time for all to be reconciled, was it not?
Yes.
And Joseph now was ready to do what?
Reveal himself.
Reveal himself, make his identity known unto his brethren. And he cleared the room of everyone outside of himself and who?
His brothers.
His brothers. And then he wept aloud such that all outside the room could hear. Could you imagine the brothers seeing this powerful man in Egypt just all of a sudden, you know, and then his tears, his cries no longer suppressed, but freely flowing from the raw emotion of his heart. He loved and forgave his brothers at this moment, did he not? And well, he had forgave them long ago, but this, you know, and he longed to be reunited with his family, but he especially wanted to be reunited with who in particular? His father. His aged father. And the Egyptian governor next revealed himself unto his 11 brethren to be who? He says, I am Joseph. Yeah, and this is their long presumed dead brother, or, you know, gone brother. And his brethren were rendered speechless at this shocking revelation, for they were then what in his presence? It's the King James says he was troubled, and yours says dismayed. Why? Why were they troubled?
They thought he was dead.
That's part of it. And then
What's gonna happen to them?
what's going to happen to them? There's the other part of it. Yeah, you know, can you imagine what's going through their minds at one time? As per one commentator, this was the worst news they could have ever have hoped to hear. It brought them no relief in this moment, but only new avenues of anxiety. It was bad enough to stand before a powerful Egyptian governor who was angered at the theft of a cup, but to realize that he was their brother whom they had sold into slavery, that was just too much, you know. Before they at least had a hope that this judge would be impartial and that mercy might motivate him to accept their appeal, but now their judge must surely be their enemy, whom they had utterly unjustly condemned. How could they hope for better treatment for him? No wonder they were troubled. They were petrified in their spirits, you know.
I never questioned this, but they might have even had some second thoughts as, well, if this man really can divine, maybe he's divined the whole thing about what we did to somebody called Joseph. And you know, and they might be thinking, what's he gonna do now? I mean, you know, who knows?
Well, he's just said he's Joseph.
Yeah, I know. And so they might think, well, is he mocking because he's divined this
That
or
could
something?
be, yeah, And Joseph, let's see, now we're going to 4 through 8, please.
That would be Shirley.
Oh, okay.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, my brethren. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourself, that you sold me hither, for God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years, in the which there shall neither be cereals nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and a lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all of the land of Egypt.
We don't see Joseph's brothers grabbing, hugging, and kissing their long absent sibling, do we? Instead, we picture them backing away at the shock of this news. It's like, whoa, you know. And just Joseph seeks to calm their fears, and he beckons his brothers to what? He says, come near, which they do. And then Joseph again affirms he is Joseph, but this time he adds that he is their brother, whom they what? Sold into Egypt or into slavery. You know, they may have been thinking what David said, but now that they can't think that no more. Because, you know, that Joseph acknowledges their sin against him, but he quickly makes clear his forgiveness of them. And then Joseph makes clear that what they intended for evil, who intended it for good? God. And with that truthful affirmation, he urges his troubled brothers, seeing that, they're seeing him now after these 20 plus years, and he sees their countenance at the revelation, and he says, he encourages them to be not what nor what with themselves, grieved or angry. He's trying to, help the reconciliation go better. Then Joseph repeatedly declares the truth that who sold and sent him hither? His brothers did. And yet God used his going hither to deliver, save, and preserve who and what? To save his brothers' lives, their very lives, these very same brothers' lives, plus that of their entire families, thereby just preserving their posterity in the earth. The posterity from which the Messiah will come many ages later. God's plan was not thwarted by all this, was it not? For God many years before it also revealed the 7 good years, as well as what to Joseph? 7 years of famine. Of which they have suffered how many years at this time?
2.
Only 2. So there's 5 more to go if we do the math, right? And Joseph further declares that it was also God who hath blessed him and made him a what throughout all the land of Egypt? A ruler. Which gave him the power and the control necessary to accomplish all that was necessary to save them all, to preserve them all, did it not? One commentator sums it up thusly: we know that the righteous God hates all sin with a perfect and irreconcilable hatred, but it is his prerogative, his sovereign prerogative, to bring good out of evil. And no sin can be committed without his knowledge or in opposition to his holy counsels. His will always be done, will it not? Sinners are only as really the ministers of his providence as saints, because in the end he can take their evil and turn it for his glory, can he not? And he glorifies himself by the wickedness which he hates and punishes, as well by the holiness which he loves and rewards. End of quote. 9 through 11, please.
Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not, when thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nurse thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty.
Or even worse, not only poverty, but death. There are 5 more years of what yet to suffer and endure?
Famine.
And it is obvious that in the land of Canaan, the famine has already taken its toll. It's been but only, 1, 2 years, and they've had to come back for food twice? So that's already, but God intends to deliver and preserve his people. Thus Joseph instructs his brothers to firstly return unto who? Their father. And then to return unto Egypt. You go and bringing with them not only their father, but who and all, what else?
The possessions, everything
Everything they had. All their families, all their flocks and herds, and all that they own, so that they may now dwell where? In the land of Goshen. Near unto who? Unto Joseph, their brother. For he will nourish them for the duration of the famine. 12 through 15, please.
And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaketh unto you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen. And ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck, and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren, and wept upon them, and after that his brethren talked with him.
He wanted all of his brothers to relate to their father not only all they've seen and heard and experienced in Egypt, but more importantly what?
That he was alive.
That Joseph was alive. That his son is not only alive and well, but that he is truly blessed. And again, he instructs and urges his brothers to make haste and do what? And bring my father to me, And then Joseph embraced which of his brothers first?
Benjamin.
His true brother. You know, and they each wept with joy over their reunion. Now, when he left, I think Benjamin was only about 4 or 5 years old. They're saying he was still a young lad. So, and then Joseph embraced his other brothers, and they all spent some time, I would say, getting reacquainted with one another.
Yes.
Did they not? 16 through 20, please.
Now, the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. So it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and depart, and go to the land of Canaan. Bring your father and your households, and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. Now you are commanded, do this, take carts out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives, bring your father and come. Also, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours.
Now, who was happy to hear that Joseph was reunited with his brothers? Pharaoh and his servants. You know, as God had been with Joseph and blessed him in the house of Potiphar and in the prison, so was God with Joseph as he served Pharaoh. And Pharaoh apparently highly regarded
He appreciated
Joseph, you know.
He was glad he was there.
And he determined to favor Joseph and to not only aid his family in their move to Egypt, but to enhance their provision once they got there.
Amen.
God not only blesses Joseph, but he even blesses those associated with him, does he not?
Yeah.
And let's see, Genesis 45, 21 to 23, please.
And the children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them gladly according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of remnant, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of remnant. And to his father he sent after this manner 10 donkeys laden with the goods of things of Egypt, and 10 she-donkeys laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way.
Wow. Can we not say wow?
Yes.
Joseph went all out, did he not?
Yes.
Yes.
Especially when you consider they're in the midst of a severe famine. But Joseph knows how much he stored in the storehouses too. He knew it was more than he could even count. But notice the special blessings given firstly to who? Benjamin. And then to who? His father, because he gave, you know, those 10 donkeys or whatever. He loaded up with special stuff with his father. These two were special to Joseph, were they not?
Amen.
24 and 25, please.
So he sent his brethren away, and they departed, and he said unto them, see that you fall not out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan, unto Jacob their father.
You know, he advised, Joseph gave them a word of, or a commandment. Don't y'all get up, you know, get in a fight on the way back. But after all this, who departed?
They all did.
Joseph's 11 brothers. For even Benjamin went back with him. You know, he wasn't going to do that to his father. Can you imagine the excitement and the eager anticipation they all were feeling? You know, especially Judah and Benjamin, after what they thought they were going to have to face. Benjamin thought he was going to remain in Egypt, and Judah thought, oh God, I've got to go back. So, and they hurriedly left Egypt, and they returned unto where? The land of, and unto who? Their father, Jacob. 26 to 28, please.
And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart stood still, because he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. Then Israel said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive, and I will go and see him before I die."
Now take a moment and recall the great grief and despondency that Jacob experienced as he mourned over who? The word said it was such that he would not be comforted. And such grief may lessen, but it never wholly departs. You know, Benjamin never took the place of Joseph. I don't, think it has been 20 plus years. Now I wonder who got to their father first and gave him the miraculous news that who is yet alive.
I figured Judah. Because he was the one responsible.
That news alone was wondrous enough. But then they also tell him that Joseph is who? He's the governor of all the land of Egypt. It's no wonder that Jacob's heart what? Fainted or stopped or stood still. It became weak because such news was just what?
Too wonderful to be true.
Yep, unbelievable but beyond belief. It is amazing that such news in fact didn't kill him. Jacob's sons told him all the words of Joseph and no doubt about everything else that took place, And only when Jacob saw what did he begin to believe that it all might even be true. All the wagons which Joseph had sent back, yep. Only then was Jacob's spirit what? Revived or renewed. It was given fresh hope, was it not?
Yeah.
And I feel Jacob's next words are poignant, for Jacob's only desire is to do what before he dies? See Joseph. Alive and well. See him alive and well. The fact that he is a ruler in Egypt is just icing on the cake, is it not? So to speak, for Jacob. I'll read from commentary.
Before you read that, may I notice something? It mentions two names. It mentions Jacob didn't believe when he got the report
Right,
of Joseph.
and then it changed to Israel.
And then it changed to Israel.
It
when the
always
wagons-
does. It always does when Jacob comes to faith, or
Yeah.
has belief, or whatever. It changes to Israel. What page is it? Here it is. As one commentator said, this was God's family of promise. He had preserved them by his hand despite so many challenges. Nothing could and nothing can thwart God's plan to bless the nations. And we're still awaiting a great blessing, are we not? So and nothing's going to thwart that plan. But this here says God's purpose prevails. The story of Joseph declares God's purpose is not negated by human effort. It wasn't then, and it's not now, is it not? God's ways are hidden and mysterious throughout the narrative, but his ways are sovereign. Jacob's sons sold their brother into slavery. However, God worked through the dark actions of the brothers to preserve the family, establish the family's future, and accomplish his will. Furthermore, the story demonstrates the necessity of viewing our deepest struggles in terms of God's purpose. When Joseph recognized God's hand, God had sent him to Egypt to save his family, he was able to relinquish any thoughts of revenge, anger, and bitterness he might have held towards his brothers. Many Christian families today are troubled by hostile conflicts that cause deep divisions. Like Joseph's brothers, family members might be unable to speak peaceably to each other. Many pray for restoration and reconciliation, but these broken relationships cannot be mended without acknowledging wrongdoing and the readiness to forgive. May we be more like Joseph, inclined to offer grace, forgiveness, and love. And that's what we as Christians should do, is it not?
Yeah.
Next week we're going to look at Jacob and Joseph die well, because they do go back to Egypt, and that's where we find out that's how he gets his. Remember, he told Abraham that his descendants would be enslaved for 400, and that's how God gets them there to have him that come to pass.
That's still, this very interesting, this comment that you gave us at the end about God working out despite things, circumstances that look adverse. And I really think that the enemy, Satan, was trying to eliminate the Jewish people before the promises of God could come to pass. And so it's like God is working behind the scenes to send Joseph down there so secretly out of the way, no chance that this could happen. And God uses this to turn it around and to save his brothers. And at times, even history repeats itself. At the time of Esther, again, Haman comes with this evil plot to destroy the Jews. And but God is working behind the scenes, and Esther comes in. I mean, God always turns around those evil things that Satan is planning for us and for the disturb the plan of God for us. He can turn it around every time.
Yep, and it may take 20 years.
Yeah.
It may
Thank you
be
for
instantly.
sharing that. I mean, I ain't trying to be